Powered by Fantasyverse. Welcome to Turn a Page, the official comic book club for Nerd Initiative. Each week, the NI Bullpen will be covering the world of comics, talking to creators, deep diving into some fantastic stories, and much more. Now let's hand it over to the team and turn a page.
Going on, everyone? It is Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you are tuned in for a brand new edition of Turn a Page, the official comic book club for the home of pop culture positivity. My name is Ken M. You know me as the host of the ODPH podcast. I'm also Nerd Initiative Editor-in-Chief. To my left, you're right at home. You know him as the head of NI Wrestling, but he's also one of our featured reviewers in the Nerd Initiative Bullpen for comics. Say hello to Rich.
I will tell you, I am super excited for tonight and our special guest. So much, in fact, that I was playing the air drums there and my headset literally almost flew off. So I was like, eh. So if you wonder why I was like going like that, is because I literally almost lost my headset just because I am super pumped and extra stoked for tonight.
See, I figured it was you were blown away by the book we're going to be talking about, because at the comic shops tomorrow is a brand new book from Dark Horse Comics that is going to be one that you want to have in your collection. It is one that is absolutely going to blow you away. It is a noir thriller like you've never seen before. And we are very fortunate enough to have the writer of this book on with us tonight. You know his work from such books as Mindset, Beyond Real, Breakout, and the smash hit Kill All Immortals. Please give a warm welcome to the one and only ZACK KAPLAN of Masterminds.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to be with you guys.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for coming on. And this book, and I can't stress enough, this is one that I think is going to be the talk at the comic shops tomorrow, this week. There's going to be a lot going on with this. Why don't we talk a little bit about how Masterminds all came to be?
Yeah. I'm just pissed. I wanted millions and millions of dollars. I want that Kirkman comic money. I was promised lots and lots of money when I got into comics. Everyone knows that comics in all creative fields is where you make tons and tons of money. I think it kind of came out of over the years feeling like no matter what you're doing, whether you're starting a podcast or you're doing something creative or even just doing a 9-to-5, that the kind of the rules of getting success and finding success had kind of all changed and evolved on us, and no one told us. And so here we all are trying to like work hard and be smart and be good to one another, and maybe actually getting ahead these days is upside down. And so it was kind of feeling that gamification of success and just wanting to tell a really kind of crazy story about success, about games, about game culture, and wrap it all up in secret societies. And I had stumbled upon this real thing called mastermind circles. And they kind of really came in prominence back in the 80s. I think they came out of Harvard and other Ivy League schools. And they're basically this idea that like a group of people say, hey, we're all going to help each other get ahead by any means possible, but we're not going to tell anybody that we're all in league working together. Very secret. And it's a real thing. And I just found that really fascinating. It kind of exemplified the gamification of trying to get ahead, kind of working with other people and doing whatever it takes, but all in this kind of illicit, mysterious sort of nature. And so this is kind of where Masterminds all the germination of it all.
Very interesting. Like seriously. Now that we know where it came up from, it's time for the famous elevator pitch. That's my favorite question I always ask. So when people are going to the comic book shop, what is your pitch? What is Mastermind? We know the background, but what is Masterminds all about? What is the story?
It's kind of like David Fincher's The Game for the 21st century, but it's very much about a young programmer who's in the world of gaming, and he hasn't found success. He's frustrated. And then he discovers this secret society called Masterminds. And to join their ranks and open doors to success, and achieve his wildest dreams. He's got to play their games of real life challenges, puzzles, and riddles. And it's very much a who's controlling who thriller. We've woven this whole kind of fabric about games and riddles into kind of the reading experience. And it's just non kind of a twisty turny sort of not nonstop, but it's very twisty turny sort of noir thriller. And I think if you like things like Department of Truth sort of mystery and intrigue, and you like Squid Game sort of kind of competitive, who's going to win, what's going to happen, what's the real motives and secrets here, I think this is a book for you.
Yeah, I even like when you look at like the cover and the mask that's on the cover, it does have that Squid Games-esque look. Not saying once diving in and reading the issue, obviously it takes some way.
Yeah, it goes in a lot of different directions,
different turns, but it does kind of bring that to mind, and I think that's a great analogy.
Yeah, because I mean, especially with how it's set up too, and this is not the first time that you've worked with the artist on the book here.
No,
with Stephen Thompson, because you guys were known for working the Midnight Shadows.
Yeah,
so, Oh, go ahead.
No, the Midnight Shadows is one of the largest synthwave bands in the world, and we got a chance to do their graphic novel, and I fell in love with working with Stephen Thompson. I mean, he's so his work is incredibly cinematic. Feels like you're just like jumping right into a Fincher movie. It's really detailed, and he's just a fantastic kind of mix of world building and character moments, and he captures the dread of this. Just absolutely love working with him.
So when you went up and talking to him about this, obviously this is a different story that you're doing.
Yeah.
What was how is the process different, from this collaboration from your last one with him?
I mean, we worked on the Midnight Shadows, and even though we were creating something for the band, I knew immediately I wanted to do something else with them that was purely creator owned. And so as soon as that was wrapping up, I said, well, let's do something else, and brought him this idea. And I think the fun was designing the look of this, designing, what are the masks? I mean, in some ways, the masks that the secret society wears kind of feels a little Squid Games, but it's different, and these puzzles are different. And man, I'll tell you, so we're selling okay, we're going to come up with really smart puzzles and riddles and things. So Steven and I had our work cut out for us to think up really kind of inventive, fun ways to use the comic book, format and layouts to show these puzzles. And it was really so much fun to kind of think about those things with him and develop that. We definitely had a lot of it wasn't just here's the script. It was a lot of early back and forth email conversations about how do we do this puzzle, or how do we show this puzzle, or how do we capture this. So it was a challenge, but it was a visual challenge. It was a lot of fun to create this world with him.
Yeah, because I think when anybody sees this cover too, I gotta keep throwing that is just a statement maker. When you see this, you're instantly drawn in, what is going on here? And then as you start seeing the different variations of the covers going around too, it's one that really, I think when readers are at the shelves, it's going to stand out and it's going to pop. It's just how it looks. And especially utilizing Steven's talents for that, it really kind of is deceptive about what it is. Because like you say, when you think Squid Games and you think about how popular that's been, to see that genre now come here, and obviously the way you took it with no spoilers, it's really been a fun trip to see. And then to see where we're going with this, because like I say, there's so many different directions it goes in. That's the one thing we can't emphasize enough about.
We knew, I mean, I'm really big on covers, and it's really important, I think, for the cover to convey so much. And so here you've got to convey that the mask and represents the society, and the guy that's falling represents kind of the individual. And so quite clearly we can see that this is not a fair fight, and there's all this kind of glitchiness to it, and this kind of tech sort of energy to it that makes you feel like it's like you're trapped in a game. And we ended up doing that sort of inspiration for the entire A cover series. I'm also a big fan of covers that have the A cover series that has consistency. You'll be Kill or Be Killed, and it's always the the guy in the hoodie with the gun, and it's all kind of the same color palette. So I really like covers that kind of create kind of a brand identity and a kind of aesthetic that you come back to again and again. So the entire A cover series for Masterminds has this maze-like sort of swirl on the cover, and then different sort of environments. And this first one, it's the guy with the mask, but it was just a lot of fun to kind of really be thoughtful about what we want to convey. And you know, this is about feeling like you're falling and feeling like you can't catch a break, and but there's also this kind of seductive quality to it. I think that's what you're sensing, and you know, I'm glad that you picked up on it, that like it's kind of calling you. It's kind of, I mean, that's the fun thing about secret society stories. Like, you know, they're potentially nefarious, but you also kind of want to be a part of them. It's like, you know, the fantasy of getting to join and have that. So I think it's so fun to kind of tell those kinds of stories.
Yeah, because there's just so much mystique to it. Like, you know, like to think about how taboo it is, and then to kind of go and see, and then that's how you get in, you know, caught up in it, and then, you know, how the story goes. But yeah, that cover is just the first thing that jumped to me. It was like it just visually stuck out, like just in like trying to analyze it, going like, okay, what's going on here? And then as you start seeing it goes with the story.
Yeah,
it is just brilliant, like synergy going on with that.
Yeah, he did a great job. Fantastic cover. Yeah,
I know we're putting over the covers huge. Good. I think all the covers were fantastic, especially, and like you said, and that middle cover though, like this is going to segue into mine. It instantly jumped out to me as like Squid Games mixed with Saw a little bit.
Yeah,
it almost has like that jigsaw quality, so you know something is kind of in a horror realm, obviously, and this is a thriller. But most readers know your work for mostly being sci-fi. Not that this doesn't have sci-fi elements as well, but was there any challenges jumping into that noir thriller / horror kind of genre for this book?
I mean, I played with some of these elements a little bit in other things. I Mindset, which was a Vault Comics series I did, was kind of a thriller about who's controlling who and about technology, and it was kind of grounded in noir and felt Fincher-esque. And so I think I definitely got a chance to bring some of those similar kind of touchstones and that vibe into this. And then I just did a book called Dark Empty Void with Mad Cave, which is a cosmic horror thriller, completely different. But that was my first foray into horror. So, and even, you know, going way back, my first book, Eclipse, was had hints of horror, because you had a killer using sunlight to burn people alive. And so I think it's I don't always go into these sort of areas, but it's not something that's completely foreign to me. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, I like to take different things and kind of combine them. So I think this particular recipe and mix is new to me, but the ingredients are not.
No, there's definitely a lot of different elements in there too. And like I say, I don't want to say there's something for everybody there, but it kind of is, to be honest, because not only you're dabbling in with like the horror aspect and a little touch of sci-fi and the noir, but the video game culture.
Yeah,
like, that is something that, you know, we see it in certain aspects in comics, but like especially with the main character Edward, he's heavily immersed in this.
Yeah.
So when you're writing this, are you a very big video game fan, or like what research really went into?
Yeah, I was a huge video game kid growing up. Huge. 80s and 90s, I was just, you know, all in on all the gaming systems as they were coming out, and, you know, deep into computer games. And yeah, I'm very much tapping into my adolescence, and I think there absolutely was this comfort in games, because you quickly realize the rules of the game. You quickly understand how to get to the end. And even though it might be challenging or really hard, you know that you can control getting there. I mean, I don't think any of us have played games that you can't win. You know, like we always win. You always win the game, you know, whatever it is, you win the game. So I like that. I like feeling in control and having the ability to be tested and face a puzzle and then solve the puzzle and move on. And it feels like a really, but you know, the gaming, when I was growing up, games in the 90s, it was not like what it is today. I mean, today it's $1 billion, you know, it's bigger than movies, and game, not just like video games on like not just PS5 games or computer games, but like the whole like Wordly, fantasy football, like all the kid like Candy Crush, like it's every game. The premise of a game is everywhere, and people that you would have approached in the 90s and said, do you play any video games, they would have said no, not at all. But now everyone plays games in some way or another. So I really find it fascinating how prevalent games have become, and I can't help but wonder, like, what has it done to us? Like, what what is the ramifications of constantly playing games with everything else we do?
That's a great question to pose, to be honest with you, because you see how much we've adapted with technology, through the years, and like how now, we rely on it, in my opinion, just like a little too much. And
what about finding a job? How that's
Yeah.
the gamification of LinkedIn, and you've got to put certain words in your resume so the AI or whatever algorithm they're scanning it will pick it up. So it's a game, dating, all these apps, it's a game, everything is a game, even us trying to sell comics and get the word out on things, the premise of clicks and followers and all of this thing, like we get out there and we share our passion for something, but there's this whole underlying gamification of everything. And I think technology is absolutely to blame for that. Like technology has absolutely made it so easy to just gamify everything, and then it's so easy for us to fall into that habit. I can't even remember what the other habits were way back in the day, like how did you find a job before before you posted on LinkedIn and you typed in all it was human qualities and elements that I feel like have been bled out a lot. So it's fascinating to me how much gamification has kind of, and then that puts the emphasis on how smart you are to win the game and how cutthroat you are and how much you're willing to control the game, and not so much on maybe the more human and moral qualities that maybe it'd be better if we respected. So it's just I don't have the answer to any of this stuff as ever. I never do.
Yeah.
I always with my books I'm like, hey, here's a really thought-provoking, interesting area to discuss and let readers think about it. But I just find it interesting that how much games have affected our lives.
But that's always something too you want to leave the reader with. You want to leave them with a question. You want to leave them after they get done with a story going, and give them something to remember it by, not just by with the art and the dialogue, but something to take with them.
Yeah.
I think that anytime you can do that, that's always an amazing feat.
Yeah. What would you do? What would you do if you were stuck and then you met this secret society and the secret society said, hey, we can solve all your problems. You become a member. We'll open every door in the world for you. You can become that multimillionaire. You can have everything you want, but you just have to be willing to approach life as a game. You have to be willing to play a little bit differently. And what are you willing to do to get ahead? And I think that way, like, there's definitely a psychological horror. I know that there are a couple aspects in the first issue that make it seem like it's more Saw-like, and there's certainly the Aaron Campbell cover has that sort of quality to it. But I will say to readers, it is not really where the series goes. It's not really like grotesque. It's not really like Saw. I think of this definitely more of a thriller. Not everything is not as it seems. So if you're like, whoa, Saw is a little hardcore for me, this is not that. But I think there is a horror component to it. And the horror is more in like, how much are you willing to risk and what are you willing to do to get ahead?
Yeah, I think from just what we read, it's definitely more of a psychological horror, which is great. It's not, and I'm not saying that there isn't other elements, but it's just it's more like the psychological, like how far will one go, which sometimes makes things even scarier. Before I switch to the next question, the statement is, you said earlier about games are made to be beaten, and then you said the 90s. Well, there's games in the 80s like Jaws and Friday the 13th, the game, and I never believed that they could be beaten because I never beat them, and now people speed run them on the internet, and I don't know how. And I'm still kind of mad about that.
I'm trying to think. There's one Star Wars game that nobody has ever beaten to. Like,
is that right?
There's
Yeah.
one. I'll have to ask my co-host Padawan Jay about that, because like there's one in the ether.
Yeah, there's some games from back when I was making an age of myself, back when I was a kid. Oh boy, like the Karate Kid game that had nothing to do with the movies, and the
Oh
Back
my
to the
God.
Future game that had nothing to do with the movie.
And you couldn't beat those games. They were too hard to beat.
They were terrible.
Friday the 13th one was.
The funny part now is, though, now you can look on YouTube and people speed run the games. Like Jaws, I didn't know there was an end game, and then I watched somebody speed run it and went, "Oh, there is a finish to that game." Same with Friday the 13th. Like it's like, oh wow, there is a way to win this game, and it's funny because the person does it in under 10 minutes, and I'm like, I put hours into that game and never made that far.
I would be really curious. I mean, like you'd have to ask somebody who's far more versed in games and video games, but like I wonder if it shifted. I wonder if there was a period of time in the 80s where game developers would say, we don't care if people win this game or not, like let them throw their controller against the wall and suffer. I don't care. That's that generation. Like, you can't win, tough, that we made the game super hard, not everyone's gonna win. And then we changed it to everyone can win, you just have to, I don't know, did it change?
I think the answer is actually a lot of the developers back then were coming from arcade games, and the goal there was to pump more quarters in. So I feel like, yes, there was a way to win on home game consoles, obviously, because you can. Obviously, those games now can be beaten, but it wasn't necessarily the focus of them being like, oh yeah, let's make it easier. I think they were just like, hey, this is a licensed property. People are going to pay for it. LJN famously made a ton of games, and all of them had nothing to do with the actual franchise that they were dealing with. Like for the Back to the Future one is probably the most famous of them that didn't have like anything to do with Back to the Future other than the disappearing photo that was your timer. That was pretty much all you had. And it's kind of really strange when you go back and look at it. But I do think it was because the developers were creating arcade games, and the goal there is to keep pumping quarters in.
I think by the time I started to really dive deep into it all, it was all like the Sierra games, the Lucasfilm games, all these story-based games, and there was always a puzzle to it. And there were so many other variations in that time, but it shifted. It wasn't arcade-based. It was a story, and it was a beginning, a middle, and an end, and you could get to the end if you solved the puzzles. So, yeah, it's fascinating how that changed.
Now let's bring it back, because we were talking.
I was going to say, well, actually, we'll just cap off the gaming with, what was your favorite game growing up?
Oh, there you go.
Oh man, my favorite game growing up, it's like so impossible to pick, but one that's completely out of left field and has nothing to do with Masterminds. One that I loved dearly was Monkey Island. Monkey Island was just like so fun. I liked those story games, and I liked kind of solving puzzles, and you had to find the right item and do and you face the right thing and unlock things. So I liked that sort of game. I mean, I also completely geeked out when Doom came out, and turned a computer lab into a multiplayer network, and would play all my friends at lunch in Doom. So I mean, that was just a straight up shooter. But there were certain rules, where's the thing going to respawn, and what's the weapon, and what's the fastest route, and you speed hack all those things, and you learn how to beat someone. So no matter what, it was like, it was still puzzle solving. So yeah,
I'm on that tip, because my favorite growing up was Mega Man.
Yeah,
that's all a puzzle.
Oh, Mega Man was great. Yeah.
You had to know which order to beat the bad guys in, or else you weren't going to beat the next one.
Yeah.
Let's get back into it. We talked a little bit about you talked a little bit about, sometimes the scary part of the story is the morals, and the main character in the story, Edward, he's a little morally gray. Obviously that was intentional. And how important was it for you to make sure that it was like very well known that his morals were, not one way or another, if you will?
Absolutely. Yeah. I love morally gray characters. I think they're so fascinating to read and to join and to watch. And you don't know, is this a tragedy or not? You don't know where it's going. You don't know what price will be paid. You don't know. I love setting up a story where the reader goes, I don't know where, if this is going to be a cautionary tale or a redemption story. And so I try to like go into any story in any first issue and really ask myself, am I presenting two outcomes that could happen here? And am I giving readers a chance to see both opportunities so that they really can be surprised? And that really the way you do that is with character. You have to create a character that has enough complexity that they're being pulled emotionally in two different directions. So, I mean, Edward is a guy who absolutely wants success. He absolutely wants to get ahead. It's kind of a dream. And you can see he's driven to it so much that he is willing to play the game. He does want to win. And so he is willing to be enticed and seduced. And how far will he go? I just think that's really interesting. I don't know. I feel like we all have that a little bit, even though we all throw on our own like Jiminy Crickets at times and say, okay, wait, we're not going to do that. We all get that kind of like, should I be doing this right now? Should I be doing that? What if I did this? And so I think it's kind of really entertaining and I also just think, again, it speaks to the theme of like what is required of us in today's society. And when we look at those people who are becoming super successful, that are becoming techpreneurs or whatever field it is, it just feels like, you look at the biggest billionaires in the world, they're not like great people all the time. They're not like, and they're definitely this kind of like deification of like being cutthroat, doing whatever it takes. And so I just think that like it makes sense to tell this story with a morally great character that you don't even know. Maybe you want him to beat the system. Maybe you want him to become a mastermind. Maybe you want him to outsmart this secret society and to get in. So I like being in that kind of that darker territory. It makes for a good story.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think because it really brings out something in the character. And like I say, you want to put it in the reader's call about, do they want to root for him or they don't want to root against him, and why? Like, you want to make him so, wide open to whatever direction you want to go with it.
Yeah.
That's where it really hooks him in. Because if you're just, forced to root for him just because, well, that's the main character, it doesn't really connect in this manner. But I think where we see Edward's character go, and especially from that offset, you do get the background, so you understand what he's doing a little bit. And then as the story progresses, obviously things go a little crazy. Like I say, well, I should say, into a very unique offer and position, as we see.
What were you guys rooting for as you read the first issue? Were you rooting for him to join Masterminds?
I'm going to be honest. Like I was, and the reason why is because I'm much like you just were describing. I like morally gray characters. I mean, I'm a horror fan through and through. So it's kind of like, I'm the guy that goes to not just watch the final girl, if you will, survive the night, but I'm also interested in watching the monster and seeing what the monster does. And so in this case, like, I'm not saying that Edward's a monster, but in this case, you're like, oh, okay, he's at least his morals might be, but he's honest to where he wants to be. Like, to me, like that driven portion of him makes it attractive, because it's like, hey, yes, this is what I want. I want everything that goes along with this, and I don't mind sacrificing part of myself to get that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that makes that character even more attractive, because you're going to find out how far he will go.
Yeah.
And where is the line? If there is a line, there might not be a line, but once again, that's always going to be in the back of the head is the line coming? Is this the line? Is this where he crosses the line? Is this where the lines go away? Or does somewhere along the line he goes, I just won't do that? Like, there is a set. So I feel like that actually makes the character just way more dynamic than being like, oh, well, he really wants this, but he's really struggling to decide whether this is good for his morals or not. Like, the fact that he's diving right in, you're like, okay, where's the line?
Yeah.
There has to be one.
Yeah. I thought he should join, because much like what Rick said, like, I was there because I'm sitting there watching him going, like, without spoiling anything, mind you. I have to really watch how I word this. But with everything that leads into said decision, it made the most natural progression for him to go there.
Yeah.
Because I think had he not, for whatever reason, it would have been like, that doesn't make sense. But it was almost like, in a weird sense, like a destiny he could not run from, just because of everything he went through.
Yeah.
Because once the offer is made, you're like, oh, he has to take it. because he'd be a fool not to, because this is everything he wanted. Does he want to capture it or let it slip?
That's
And
right.
that's yeah, I'd throw that in.
Well,
But like
M&M.
literally, that's where I was going.
It's such, in that way, it's such a different setup than Squid Games, because Squid Games, and I don't think I'm ruining anything, Squid Games, the setup is this guy is kind of down on his luck. He's in debt. He's gambling. And then he gets the chance to play, a more deadly game. And by the time he faces any sort of, maybe I don't want to do this, he's stuck. He's stuck and he's in that game. There's really no way out for him. So he's a captive to that game. This is different. This is not what do you do if you're a captive. This is what would you do for this level of success? What would you do if you were given the chance to join this secret society, especially if you're like Edward, where you've been trying to achieve this dream and achieve success, and no one is giving you the chance to do so. That the system is rigged against you, and you're tired of it. So yeah, it's a very different sort of character story in that way.
The free choice element of it really opens up a lot to the story, but it also really adds to the thrillers part of the story, because you realize at some point it's not some outside force that's technically making him do this. It's him.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, as this goes on, as the journey goes on, everything is really on him, because at any time he can stop. That's the free choice that gives a lot more there. And before Ken asked this question, for some reason, when you were talking about that, all of a sudden comes in my head, Edward's theme song should just be like "Lose Yourself" by M&M, because it's kind of where you're at.
I'm not going to lie. I was listening to it when I was reading this. It just happened to be on my Spotify playlist. I'm like, oh, this makes sense. This is like perfect synergy.
Well, because it's interesting, because I think actually, and you guys have picked up on something that's really important to this story. This is in a weird way, like also a little bit of a rebellion story. This is like you're in the cubicle, you're doing dead end work, and you're trying to and when you do something that's positive and you try to show it to the powers that be, they push you back down again. This is the chance. This is the chance to say screw you to the ordinary system of success. Here's a chance to truly get ahead. And so there's this kind of like rebelling against the institution of success. And so in that way, Masterminds is a heroic endeavor, because they're saying, hey, if you've been looked over or ignored by corporate America or anywhere else, we've got a way up for you. You just have to be willing to maybe play a dangerous, more complicated game. But if you're willing to play, we're willing to help you up. And so I think in that way, it is kind of a rebel against society kind of story. And so, lose yourself. It fits.
Yeah. I mean, it's just something that came with it. And especially in the direction that Edward is going in the initial issue, because I don't want to spoil anything that's coming down the road. Was there any direction or theme that really surprised you about where his character was going from the initial offset?
I don't know if there's anything that surprised me, but I think we definitely, just tried to create a backstory so that before he goes into this thing that you care about him, you get it. We use a lot of motifs in this story, and motifs like birds and things like that, to kind of to show his chance to take flight and to kind of rise above what he's being pushed down into. And I don't know if there was anything that surprised me per se, because we spend a lot of time being thoughtful about how to introduce him. But I certainly was, once it all came together, quite pleased with how much complexity and moral ambiguity we were able to achieve in the first issue. So I'm really excited for readers to be able to get in on that.
Yeah, definitely. So this series is initially slated for 5 issues. Are there any future plans for this series to continue? Like, I understand so I should word this in 2 different ways. Is there any talks of it continuing on the business end? And knowing how the comic book business works, is there any ideas, like as the creator, do you have further ideas for this series?
This is pretty much a 5-issue miniseries. This is a standalone series, and I'll say why, and I'll also say, like, I think we'll talk about Kill All Immortals in a little bit, but Kill All Immortals was one I knew had legs from the get-go. We went into that thinking that had the potential to go further, and it did. But with Masterminds, I love when I know something is going to be a miniseries and I know it's going to end. I feel like it gives me so much more freedom to have an ending that has consequence and really gives readers like a oh wow kind of sort of closing experience. So I Masterminds from the get-go was like, let's just tell this story, Edward and the secret society, and just throw all the chaos at it, and let's just give readers just a nonstop ride until the very end, and then land it. And I short of the movie comes out or the TV show comes out and suddenly you see me doing 20 more issues of it. Yes, I am shameless. I'm absolutely doing many more if it gets turned into the next Squid Games. But until that happens, it's very much a standalone story. And I think that it was all, we didn't need any more room to kind of tell the story. And it gives us a chance to really have a story of consequence. So yeah, definitely a contained series.
Firstly, there's nobody that's going to blame you for going after the bag if they offer you more
Exactly.
Money. Trust me, I would never hold that against you.
Zach, you said it was a miniseries. I lied.
Nope. I would be like, perfect, way to go. They get that, as you pointed out in the beginning, get that Robert Kirkman money there.
That's right.
But I will say this: I always have a soft spot. I understand a lot of people want ongoing all the time, and yes, there is a time and place. There's some stories that need ongoing. Some stories are just too big. The world is too large and everything. But I love the short miniseries because a lot of times what the beginning, middle, and end is, and you just need to get there. Whether it's 5 issues, 6 issues, what have you, just getting to that beginning, middle, and the end and telling the complete story. Sometimes that's all you need. Like if you go past that, you might be digging for things and then you have a few bad issues and like you're just like literally stretching something out. You see this sometimes with things, but I feel like if you know that you can hit the stride in 5 issues, hit that stride. As long as you stick the landing, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Plus, you leave them wanting more. And I guarantee you, when the series wraps up, trust me, there'll be a big push to have more of this come out. So that's why everybody needs to go buy multiple copies of this and definitely get the word out about this. Because like you touched upon, this series is going 5, but another one is returning October 1st. It is a bullpen favorite, and that is Kill All Immortals 2. So what can we talk about that? The FOC was just this past week. I hope everybody got their copies because it's going to fly off the shelves. But yeah, let's dive back into the world of Frey and company.
Yeah. Kill All Immortals is like an HBO drama, very Succession-esque about a billionaire family, but they're Vikings. And 1,000 years ago, they discovered something that turned them immortal. And now they're just as barbaric and cutthroat as ever before. They're one of the most powerful billionaire families in the world. They live in the shadows, and the only daughter, Frey, after centuries, is tired of it. She wants out. She wants her independence. The entire first arc, which is now in graphic novel, is about her rebellion against her family. And it has a very consequential ending. But it was a huge hit for us. And we felt that this story just had the real potential to go further. She's a real kind of likable character, complex, but someone you can root for. And if you've read the first arc, we very clearly set up the trouble that is coming her way. And so we're launching a whole new season, so to speak, October 1st. And they're thrown right in the fire from the get-go. And if you read the first arc, you should absolutely check it out. But we also were very careful to make it, because we're doing a number 1 and it's a new season, to make it something that someone could go, you know what, I didn't read the first arc, but I'm going to dive right in and check this out. And you very clearly get where you are. It'll probably make you want to go back and get the backstory, but it's enough that you could dive right in fresh. So, and that's with Fico Ossio, who's an amazing up and coming I mean, not even up and coming anymore. I mean, he's he's doing Batman and Robin over at DC Comics. Fantastic artist, Thiago Rocha, who's also my colorist on Masterminds, and then Hassan, who's one of the best letters in comics. Yeah.
Definitely agree with that. Speaking of this, what would you say is the biggest change going from season 1 to season 2 as far as creative goes?
I don't want to spoil too much, but I mean,
no spoilers.
Some obvious ones is we're completely, and I think if you followed me on social media, read anything like it, we're expanding the world of Immortals. So there are more Immortals in this story, and that's really fun because in the first arc, the Immortals were Frey and her family, and now there are more, and there are more threats. And it just is exciting to watch kind of expand that world. And I think Frey starts off rebelling against her family, and her family is still in disarray at the beginning of this story. And I think what's really fun for me is to dive into the long form nature of this and to really continue to test and explore Frey as a character. She's just so fascinating to me, and it's something that I feel so relevant to where we are again in our society, and it's relating to morals and power. But I feel like you cannot want to change the world and maintain your ideals and your morals and your independence. That these things, if you want, the world has become a very chaotic, tumultuous, angry, dynamic place, and it's moving very fast. And so if you want to influence and change the world in any way, even a positive way, you cannot do that by also just being a sunny person, a good person. I feel like you need to be a barbarian. And so that Frey does not want to be a Viking. She does not want to be like her father, who's barbaric and cutthroat. So, and yet she's being challenged in these ways again and again. And so I find that to be a really just fascinating character story. And then, we've got amazing John Wick sort of actions, set pieces that give readers just a ton of fun. But yeah, I'm excited about the character story.
No, absolutely. Like to say, there's a lot to be excited about that. And especially when you mentioned about Frey, is following in the footsteps of one Erica Slaughter, who is a quote unquote heartfelt kick-ass heroine.
Yeah, that's our inspiration, I think, to try to do something like an Erica Slaughter that readers can immediately just go, I love this character. I want to see each challenge that she goes through. I'm in, and it's always different, but you get more and more attached with them. So yeah.
Yeah, because that's one thing that it definitely sounds about Frey's story, and especially like we were talking a little bit off air about it, just like how important like the sole character and then the supporting cast around him is, and we don't really see a lot of that in comics per se these days.
Yeah, I love stories like that. I love Something Is Killing the Children, and this is my first. I've had stories with action. I've written lots of action, but to have an action hero, a character at the helm, you're sort of fear agent sort of story where you have a character and they're the action hero and you're going to watch them experience invincible. I mean, we've seen some really incredible institutions emerge in comics of these types of characters, but I wanted to offer a new one in a landscape that I feel is not producing as many of these stories. I think there are still some of them out, but it doesn't feel as prevalent and as many as when I was, really, getting into comics in the early 2000s and the 2000 to 2010. I felt like there was a lot more. I don't know what that is about, but yeah, I think that's our hope is to hey, here's a character. She's going to kick ass each week. And also I feel like, look, let's be honest, Marvel and DC is like, people love their action. They love their heroes, and people come back to Marvel and DC again and again for that reason. But there are many people who have an appetite to see those types of stories in a creator-owned space where you can see a little bit more character, a little more consequence brought to the story in a different way. And so that's what excites me about doing a story like this, is to say, hey, if you like action series and you want an action hero, but you want to see something a little bit different, here's something for you. So yeah, I'm excited to continue the story a lot.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. If anybody hasn't checked the series out, make a point to go check out the first trade, and then definitely, obviously, mark the calendar for October 1st for this, because the story of Frey and everybody in Kill All Immortals is amazing too, and especially in comparison to Erica. I mean, I know that there's the talk that Something is Killing Children is coming to Netflix. Is there any possibility about Kill All Immortals following in the footsteps there to a service? Or, obviously, I think that'd be the dream to happen.
That would be lovely. I've optioned many of my properties for film and TV, and I never get a chance to talk about it until it is far enough along that it can be announced. So, it's always something that we're working on, and I hope it comes to fruition. I hope I have that kind of announcement to share, but you'll know it if and when I have the announcement. But yeah, I think it would make a fantastic film or movie, and but again, as much as that's something that that is part, like when you become a comic creator, it's just part of it. If you're telling high concept stories like this, Hollywood comes for them. But I'm trying also to tell a really fantastic ongoing action story, something that mixes character drama with incredible action, and so that's really the focus here, is to just blow people away and make them go, wow, this is an amazing action series, and I need it right away. And I guarantee, like, the visuals are absolutely fantastic. Like, Fico and Diago do an incredible job. The fights, if they were great in the first arc, they're even better. Like, we just amped everything up. There's just, it's really, I'm so excited for people to check this out October 1st. And there's some killer covers out there. We got a Tula Lote. She just won the Eisner for Cover Artist of the Year, and we got a cover with her, John Jang, Matt Taylor, Oliver Baird, who did the whole first series run, does all of our covers. Tom Muller is doing the logos on all that. He also did the logo on Masterminds. Absolutely fantastic designer. So, but yeah, very excited for people to check out Kill All Immortals. And I think if you like an action series and you like a good character story like this, and immortality is, if you're not familiar at all with the theme of the book, it's immortality is a metaphor for the billionaire class, those haves, who pass on power and wealth and legacy and never seem to die. And so, kind of like, as we see, oligarchs and billionaires take more and more power in our world, what are we to do about it? And that's kind of like, and who do you become when you challenge it? So yeah, it's really fun to kind of explore those kind of themes in a story like this. And yeah, so there's a lot going on, but I'm really excited for it to come back. I think that if you saw it and you didn't pick it up the first round, absolutely give it a try. You'll love it.
Yeah, I think that's something the readers definitely need to jump on. Like, if they have not, for whatever reason, there's time between now and August 1st. Like tomorrow, when you go to the comic shops, grab Mastermind and grab the trade paperback. Boom, it makes itself.
Yeah, easy peasy. That's right.
Get caught up. It's the best 2-pack deal of the week. I'm just going to put that out there right now. But
let's stay with something fun. We mentioned fun, so I got a fun question. It's probably an easy answer too. But we're going to mix the two worlds together. How would Frey do in the Masterminds game?
Oh, that's a great question. Oh, man. How would Frey do in the Masterminds? I think she'd do terrible. Absolutely terrible. I think Frey is far more... she's got like an inner barbaric quality that she's very able to tap into, and so certainly she's able to fight her way through anything. But I don't really think that she spends time. She follows her heart and her gut a lot. She does not follow the game playing. I feel like she hates the game playing. I feel like she comes from a family where her father and all her brothers are manipulating people and playing this game, and I think she makes it part of her identity not to. And so I think she'd do terrible at Masterminds. I think she'd be in big trouble going up against them. Yeah. Are we flipping it? Are we doing Edward and the Immortals?
I mean, we could, but I think it would just end terribly for him.
Yeah, I don't know that. I mean, he's smart, but they have a ruthlessness to, and I think that he's trying to sneak his way around a conflict or game his way around a conflict or find it. And I think that, they make their own rules. So yeah, I think ironically enough, they would both do terrible in each other's worlds.
Yeah, I think it's a battle of drive versus conviction.
Yeah.
Because like Edward has the drive to get to where he wants to be,
Yeah.
and we'll see which lines he crosses. Whereas Frey has the conviction of this is what is, very more moral. This is what is right. This is what this is why I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So like, yes, those two games do not work out so well for the other ones.
No, not at all.
No, but we got time for one more question, and we'll end it obviously with Masterminds is a brilliant noir thriller. We can't mention, can't speak enough about it. But what is your favorite thriller movie or story, and why?
My favorite thriller? Oh man, there's so many of them. And it's like, I find it really hard, but we'll do one, but it's very hard to this, like, I love movies. I love stories.
No, you can name
I
a
love
few.
So many of them, but one of my favorite thrillers, I think it'd have to be Fight Club.
Okay.
Is Fight Club a thriller?
I will allow it.
I would consider it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is absolutely just a brilliant. It was a brilliant book by Chuck Palahniuk. I mean, they kept it going as a comic series, which was really fascinating. Yeah. But I think the movie's just brilliant, and I think it's just a really fascinating, because I think it's really interesting. Thrillers, like, there's such an inherent basic quality to the thrillers. There's a crime that's being committed, and are they going to be caught or not going to be caught? Sort of kind of basic of it all, So I think it's really interesting when you take a thriller and then you add like existential thematic layers into it, because it's a genre that does not inherently lend itself to that. Like, sci-fi is the easiest genre in the world to load up with like themes and like thought-provoking stuff. And horror, actually, I think horror is pretty like I feel like modern horror does a really good job. I mean, look at Jordan Peele, like, talk about finding a way to make horror timely and relevant and thought-provoking, and existential. But like, I think that thrillers don't always do that. Like, they get so caught up in the plot machinations and the twists and the turns. And so when I find a thriller that has that sort of existential nature to it, that makes you kind of question society or institutions or the way of life, that I really love that. And so I think that's where my head's at with Masterminds, is to, if I can even capture a little bit of that in the vein of Fight Club, and just put a little bit of that existentialism into a thriller like Masterminds, then I'll be very happy. So,
well, I think you've done a great job with that too. And we can't stress enough for our audience. Masterminds #1 comes out tomorrow as we're recording, August 27th at the comic shops. So you got to make sure you pick up that, get a couple copies, because the covers are absolutely incredible. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see them right now. And then don't forget to try getting in your pull list. If you didn't miss the FOC, you got to try getting Kill All Immortals 2, which is dropping October 1st. You really don't want to be missing what Zach has coming on. Zach, we can't thank you enough for coming on the show. We definitely have to have you back on to recap Masterminds and some more there.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Absolutely. And on behalf of Rich and myself, we want to thank you, the audience, for coming for another edition of Turn a Page. And we'll end it like we always do. When you're at the comic shop and you have a great issue in your hand, such as ZACK KAPLAN's Masterminds #1, which is out tomorrow, and you see somebody struggling to find something, hand them a copy and tell them to turn a page. We'll see you next time. We're out.
This program is powered by Fantasyverse, where manga, comics, and more collide. Check their website out, because it's not a dream. It's fantasyverse. The content you've just watched is part of the Nerd Initiative Network. Make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to check out nerdinitiative.com, the home of pop culture positivity.